looks like there's another note for November 3rd below this one. Do you see that? And it continues on to the next page, which is DEPP 1722. If we could go there, please.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Sound.
And Ms. Lloyd, directing your attention to the portion that starts with 1700. Do you see where it says RN went back to patient's house? He was chatting with a friend and is feeling stressed about his relationship. Do you see that?
I do.
And it goes on to say he feels she is not being truthful with him, and he is not sure how to comfort her about this when, confront her about this when she arrives home. Do you see that?
Yes.
And the she here refers to Ms. Heard, is that right?
Correct.
Do you remember this exchange with Mr. Depp?
Objection, hearsay.
Do you have any reason to doubt the accuracy of your note?
I do not.
If we could turn to the entry for November 17th, 2014, which begins on DEPP 1723, which is the code. Ms. Lloyd, you see at the very bottom, it says 1117?
Yes.
Okay, and then I think the entry itself is on the next page. Yes, thank you. This is also a note you prepared?
Correct.
And this says RN and MD went to patient's house to assess him. Do you see that?
I do.
And so again, this reflects that you and Dr. Kipper went to see Mr. Depp.
Correct.
Do you have any recollection of why why Dr. Kipper was visiting with Mr. Depp at this time?
I do not.
The next line says, patient appeared anxious and depressed over relationship issues. Do you see that?
I do.
And then it says, patient continues to be ambivalent about relationship status. Do you see that?
I do.
Do you recall Mr. Depp expressing these sentiments to you?
Objection, hearsay.
I don't recall specific conversations.
But you also have, but this is what you wrote in your notes, correct? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Oh.
Correct. Sorry.
Sorry. Do you recall when Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard got married?
I don't recall the dates.
Okay. But you testified earlier that you did attend the wedding?
Correct.
Were you there to provide nursing services?
I don't really recall if I was a guest or I don't think they made that clear to me.
Did Dr. Kipper attend the wedding?
He did.
And did Aaron Borum attend the wedding?
He did.
Do you recall any discussions of a prenuptial agreement between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard before they got married?
Yes.
And what do you recall?
I don't recall specifics.
What do you recall generally?
I only recall what Johnny told me about the conversation.
And what was that?
That she didn't take it well.
Didn't take what well?
The idea.
Sorry, I didn't hear the end of that.
The idea of having to sign a prenup.
Did Johnny tell you that he asked Ms. Heard to sign a prenup?
I don't recall specifics.
But you recall Johnny telling you that Ms. Heard didn't want to sign a prenup?
Yes.
And when you say didn't take that well, what are you referring to?
From what Johnny said, her reaction was when they spoke about the prenup.
Do you recall that in January of 2015, Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard traveled to Japan together?
I don't recall.
Do you recall traveling to Japan with Mr. Depp?
I recall being in Japan, yes.
Do you remember anything specific about that trip?
I do not.
Do you recall Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard having a fight on a plane?
I recall a fight on a plane, but I don't know the time it was around.
What do you remember about that fight?
It was another instance where he was sitting at a table and not wanting to talk, and she wouldn't leave the table.
What was she doing?
She wouldn't leave the table. And he was saying, you know, please just go away.
And what was she saying?
I don't remember. I don't remember her words.
How was her tone?
I don't recall.
Okay. You spoke with Mr. Nadelhoff about this earlier, but at some point you traveled to Australia with Mr. Depp, right?
Correct.
Can we pull up what has been previously marked as Exhibit 14? I'd like to direct your attention to the March 1st, 2015 email from Dr. Kipper at 2:10 p.m. Do you see that?
I do.
Do you recall Mr. Depp having issues with his sleep when he was in Australia?
Not specifically in Australia.
Do you recall Mr. Depp having issues with his sleep generally?
Yes.
And what issues were those?
A hard time sleeping and staying on a sleep schedule.
Miss Lloyd, when you were in Australia with Mr. Depp, did you see where he was staying?
Yes.
And how many times did you go to that property?
I don't recall specific numbers.